Alright, we're going to check the first class cabin B, the hallway with all the rooms, back to the large hospital. Let's go to the hallway with all the rooms. We should go check out that hallway with all the rooms. Okay, let's go, Jumpy. They turned and ran down the hallway to their left. Ahead of them, farther down the hallway, they spotted Ace. Hey, Snake, where are you? Answer me if you're there. Junpei paused. What did he want to do? Let Ace handle it. Why don't we just leave this area to Ace? We can go somewhere else. I don't mind, but where? The casino? Okay, let's go. They turned and headed toward B deck. Before they knew it, they were there. So was Lotus. She was leaning against the wall, examining her nails. What do you think you're doing? She glanced up at him unimpressed. Isn't it obvious? I'm looking for Snake. I'm just not seeing it. Really? Maybe you need to look harder. Junpei didn't think that was the problem. Oh, by the way, I've got a proposal for you two. Care to hear it? Sure. What is it? Well, I don't like to beat around the bush, so I'll get right to it. Why don't we team up? Team up? Yeah. Will you need me to explain it to you? I'm saying, why don't we go through a numbered door? Even if we wanted to, that's impossible. Why? Jumpy's bracelet number is 5, mine is 6, and yours is 8. Our digital root would be 1. 1 plus 9 is 10. 1 plus 0 is 1. But there's no number 1 door in the large hospital room. The only doors there are 3, 7, and 8. Then we add another person. Huh? Who? What? Isn't that easy? 7. She was right. If they added 7, 5 plus 6 plus 8, yeah, basically, you're gonna get a root of 8. Then the 4 of them could go through the number 8 door. But, whoa, hold on a sec. What about the other 4? Why don't you add them up? That was simple enough. 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 equals 10. 1 plus 0 is 1. The digital root for those 4 would be 1. That's right. And you know the number 1 door isn't in the big hospital room, right? You know the number 1 door isn't in the big hospital room, right? Of course I know that. No, are you saying we'd leave them behind? Of course not. What kind of a woman do you think I am? Once we get off the ship, we could come back and rescue them, couldn't we? Then we wouldn't really be leaving them behind. Don't try to lie to us. I don't think you'd do anything of the sort. Really? Why do you think that? You remember, don't you? We have less than 5 hours left, even if we manage to escape. There's no way we could come back to rescue them in less than 5 hours. Well, you never know until you try. No. You're not thinking this through. Even if we brought 7 with us, we wouldn't be able to get off the ship. The 4 of us couldn't open door 9. It is hidden, but an exit can be found. Yeah. We'd need a root of 9. Yeah, that's right. The digital root for us 4 would be 8, so we'd have to add Ace to make 9. Right. Unless we bring Ace too, we'll be stuck. Lotus scratched the back of her ear. Oh, Well, that's unfortunate. She didn't sound particularly bothered by what Junpei said, nor did she seem particularly surprised. Well, let's try and find another way. A way to get out of here with all 8 of us. That's impossible. Are you being serious? You do know that only 5 people at most can go through one of the numbered doors, right? The number 9 isn't going to be an exception to that rule. Regardless, at least 3 people will get left behind. You're right. That is true. The moment he said it, Junpei felt a chill run down his spine. It was true. How Lotus could remain cavalier about it, so terrifying a prospect was beyond him. When they found the number 9, they would have to choose which 3 of them die. Lotus's forehead furrowed. Do you think I could have a moment alone? There's some things I need to think about. Damn. Junpei and June turned and began walking away from Lotus. Talking to her had left them feeling ill. Junpei's heart felt heavy and his steps sluggish, but he told himself pessimism would get them nowhere. So he forced himself to smile and turned to June. Let's just focus on finding Snake for now, okay? Yes, you're right. We can think about those other things later. Junpei nodded. Alright, where should we go next? The first class cabin, I guess. Let's go take a look at the first class cabin. It's really close. They turned around and took off down the hallway to their left. Outside of the first class cabin, they found Clover. She was standing in front of the wall. She was staring at a meaningless point on the wall, her eyes blank. Oh, you're alright? He did his best to sound friendly, but Clover didn't respond. Look, I know you're really worried, but, he could think of no words to say that didn't sound hollow and fake. Junpei hesitated. Clover was so consumed by worry and fear that Junpei feared it would crush her. Her actions didn't surprise him. She had suddenly lost her brother, who she seemed to have been very close to. Lone. Her voice was thin and barely audible. Lone. Lone. I said leave me alone! Suddenly she was screaming. You're so annoying, just go away and leave me alone. Just looking at you guys is pissing me off. Go away. Just go somewhere else, stop bothering me. Junpei was taken aback. Such anger and hate. June's eyes had gone wide with surprise as well. Why are you still here? Didn't you hear me? Fine, forget it. If you aren't gonna leave, then I'll just... Alright, let's go, June. Yeah. They turned and left Clover. As they did, Junpei glanced back over his shoulder to see Clover wiping tears from her face. Ah, Clover had driven home the misery of their situation, but Junpei told himself that getting depressed would get him nowhere. But depressed. For Clover's sake, they had to find Snake and fast. He did his best to push away the misery and depression and forced a smile. So where do you think we should go next? So we checked the casino already. Let's go back to the large hospital room? No. Let's go to the hallway with all the rooms. Maybe we can talk to Ace there. We can take a look at the hallway with all the rooms. We'll talk to Ace, see what he has to say. There was no sign of anyone. Snake, of course, was nowhere to be found. They would have to look somewhere else. But where? Why don't we go back to the big hospital room? They turned and headed back toward the large hospital room. On their way to the large hospital room, Junpei and June noticed Santa standing next to the number 3 door. Junpei paused. Junpei and June walked up to Santa. What are you doing? What, you can't tell? Checking out the red. Is there something bothering you? What, it's not bothering you? Huh? There's the guts of this red. Why wouldn't you wonder who the hell put it back in here? Yeah, that's true. Well, I'm curious too, but who do you think did it? Santa's eyes narrowed as he looked at June. She shook her head. I don't know. But what about you, Junpei? Who do you think fixed this thing for us? Lotus, 0. Snake. It couldn't have been 0. Maybe Snake? Well, it seems like it would have to be Snake, wouldn't it? Maybe he got back here before any of us? He found the parts somewhere, put them back, and then went through one of the numbered doors? Nah, that's not possible. Yeah, you have to authenticate with at least 3 people, or the red won't open. There's no way a single person could get through there by themselves. Yeah, I guess you're right. It was a stupid mistake, and Junpei knew it. How had he made such a foolish miscalculation, and how had Santa noticed it so quickly? Perhaps he just wasn't as clever as he used to be. Junpei shook his head sadly. So in other words, one of us is the person who fixed the red. Santa grinned. Bingo! We have a winner. But if that's true, then the person who did it doesn't want the rest of us to know. Yeah. Well, I didn't imply that Snake went through the door. I just thought that he would have been the one to fix it. But why? No idea. Maybe if they come clean on that, it means we'd find out something else. I think 7 fixed it, I think. I don't think Lotus would she? means we'd find out something else, something bad. Something bad? Don't know. But whatever it is, it's gotta be worth hiding. Of course. Could have something to do with Snake's disappearance. You think maybe they did something to Snake? It's not out of the question. Junpei stared at Santa. There was something about him that made Junpei wary. At first he'd assumed the other man wasn't terribly clever, but Junpei was beginning to think he would need to reevaluate that assessment. When Santa spoke again, his voice was quiet. Look, if you trust anybody in this game, you're gonna lose. You've got to be careful. The person you trust the most could turn out to be the one who stabs you in the back. With that depressing suggestion, he turned and quietly walked away. Junpei and June looked at one another and smiled awkwardly. Finish our search, I guess. They looked everywhere they could think of, but Snake was nowhere to be found. Lotus looked around at 6 frustrated faces and spoke. We can't keep looking for Snake wherever he is. It's not here. We need to get moving. Junpei couldn't disagree with what she was saying. Snake seemed to have completely disappeared. There was no point to wasting any more time. The others seemed to be having similar thoughts, but they stayed silent. Finally, 7 spoke. We don't get a choice. We don't got a choice. Lotus is right. We're not gonna find Snake. There's a problem, though. We've got to figure out who's gonna go through which door. Yeah, I have a proposal. She walked back and forth across the floor, her heels clicking against the wood. Finally, she stopped. Why don't we decide on one person to sacrifice? Sacrifice? Well, perhaps that's a bit of a harsh word, but yes. You've all figured it out by now, haven't you? We can't all make it through those doors. If we split into 2 teams of 4 and 3 people respectively, then 3 people will be left behind. If we split into 2 teams of 5 and 2 people respectively, then 2 people will be left. But if we split into 2 groups of 3 and leave 1 person out, then only 1 person will be left behind, leaving behind 3 people with 2 teams of 4 and 3. She was honestly right. It wasn't pleasant, but she was right. There wasn't any way that the numbers worked out. If one group was 4, the other group would always have a digital route that didn't match a door. When 7 spoke, his voice was strained. Then, you're saying we gotta decide who's gonna stay behind? Yeah, we do. If the other 6 are to survive, then 1 person has to sacrifice themselves. No, that's too cruel. What's so cruel about it? To just sacrifice someone like that? Then what's your plan? Maybe we should sacrifice 2 people instead of just 1. That's not what I meant. We shouldn't sacrifice anyone. I told you, that's impossible. Wake up. Whoa, calm down, you 2. Santa stepped between Lotus and June. Look, what Lotus is trying to say is that you should aim to bring the greatest. amount of happiness to the greatest amount of people, right? Exactly. Exactly. That's how democracy works. And for that reason, I think the only fair way to decide who will be sacrificed is through a vote. What do you think? No, that's terrible. I'm not asking you. Shut up. What about you, Santa? Me? Well, I agree, I guess. Alright, that's one vote. Count to mine, that's 2. 7.
I can't say I agree with you, but we don't exactly have a choice. If we don't do something, we're all gonna die.
Glad to see you get it. If I can get one more vote, then it's decided. What about you, Clover? Clover had moved away from the group and was sitting on one of the beds. Clover had moved away from the group and was sitting on one of the beds. Her whole body dropped. Junpei didn't know if she'd even heard Lotus's proposal. Lotus walked over to Clover and gently laid a hand on her shoulder. Your brother has to be behind one of the numbered doors. We searched everywhere, but we didn't find him. Doesn't that mean he has to have gone through one of them somehow? Clover slowly lifted her face. Let's go look for him together, okay? If we sacrifice one person, then we can go look for him. You agree with me, right? Clover nodded once. The motion carries. Lotus spun around and walked toward Junpei. Now let's start a vote to...
That won't be necessary.
Ace had barely spoken for Lotus's entire speech, and everyone jumped a little. 6 pairs of eyes turned to look at him. He didn't seem to notice or even care.
I'll stay. That should solve our problem, yeah?
Ace, what are you saying? No, you can't do that. That won't solve anything. June's voice shook and she looked around desperately for someone to agree with her. Ace simply looked at her.
June, I'm afraid you may have misunderstood me. I said I would stay, but I never said I would sacrifice myself.
Huh?
I trust you, each and every one of you. I believe you'll come back for me. Whoa, there's optimistic and then there's just nuts.
These doors only go one way. You go in, you don't come out.
If we go through them, you won't be able to return, correct? Yeah.
True, but that will not be the case once you've escaped from the ship.
What?
Please, I beg you, once you've escaped, come back and rescue me. Ideally within the time limit Zero has given us. No, that's ridiculous. There's no way we could get back in time. Finally, Junpei could hold his tongue no longer. We've only got 5 hours left. We don't even know where the hell we are. How on earth are we gonna find someone to come and rescue you?
Then perhaps you would prefer to stay instead of me.
Or perhaps you would be willing to leave June behind. Ace's voice was dignified and without a hint of cruelty or malice. Junpei had no rebuttal.
You see, there's no other choice.
Then I see we've come to our conclusion.
Go on.
Don't worry yourselves about me. Go quickly. June bit her lip so hard that Junpei feared she would break the skin. 7 stood against a wall, calm and aloof. Santa. Yeah. 7 tore his beanie from his head and turned it over anxiously in his hand. Only Clover stared at Ace with an expression Junpei was unable to decipher. Lotus's attitude, however, was different from the others. Good. Let's accept his kind offer, then. She smiled, her eyes bright. Ace answered with a smile of his own.
Good. I think this is the best for me. Perhaps I'll be able to take a nap. Perhaps it's my age, but I get tired so easily these days.
As he spoke, Ace lowered himself down to the floor next to one of the beds. Poor Ace. From somewhere deep in the ship, Junpei suddenly heard the screeching of metal on metal. It was almost as if the ship were screaming. Would it really hold until their time limit was up? Already D-deck was flooded. In the sudden silence, the only sound was the sad metal wail of the ship.